Welcome to another edition of The Blue Wall. I'm Michael Smeltzer, and I am here live on X and YouTube. We're going to talk a little bit about where Michigan football can go from here. We all watched it yesterday, folks. Illinois 21, Michigan 7. It was a very disappointing performance by the Michigan Wolverines. Um, we thought that after the bye, we thought that maybe Tuttle would inject a little bit of life into this Michigan team, particularly this Michigan offense. And now we have seen three different quarterbacks attempt to lead this offense, and three different quarterbacks have failed to lead this offense. And so when we look today at what Michigan football should do, or where does Michigan football go from here, we're going to look at the quarterback situation heading into the end of this year and next year. And then we're also going to look at the coaches. But let's start with the quarterbacks. So this offseason, we were specifically told by offensive coordinator Kurt Campbell and head coach Sharon Moore that they liked what they saw in the quarterback room, and they specifically did not want to hit the transfer portal. That's what we were told. And then there were rumors coming out of camp that Alex Orji was looking good, that we were going to be impressed with the way that Alex Orji's arm looked. We knew Tuttle was convalescing from injury. He was supposed to be getting a little better. And then, what we saw was Davis Warren won the job. Surprisingly, week one, Davis Warren won the job. It was a little bit controversial. It was a little bit unexpected. Alex Orji was expected to be the starter, and then Davis Warren came out week one. He opened the season as the starting quarterback. He showed some promise throwing the ball downfield, especially to the tight ends and Colston Loveland in particularly. But ultimately, he struggled with pressure. He proved that he was prone to interceptions, especially and most concerningly against a team like Arkansas State, where I believe he threw 3 interceptions. And he misread a lot of plays. Warren's stats: 444 yards, 2 touchdowns, 6 interceptions. That's a 66.7 completion rate. Again, the completion rate, not terrible. The 2 touchdowns to 6 interceptions is alarming to the point where it's just unacceptable. Unfortunately, Davis Warren is still Michigan's leading passer at this point in the season, if you can believe that. After Warren got benched, Alex Orji came in. It was the USC game. It was Michigan's first ever stripe out. There was excitement in the air. We thought, okay, Alex Orji is the answer. He looked good against USC. I mean, I wouldn't say he looked good as a passer or as a pure quarterback, but he appeared to command the team and the offense a little bit. It was an exciting game. It was the Khalil Mullings coming out party. Mullings, won the game at the end, 27-24. But we all saw what the truth of the situation was, which was with Alex Orji at quarterback, this is a one-dimensional team, not a run-first team. There's a difference. The Jim Harbaugh teams with Blake Corum, those were run-first teams. This, with Alex Orji, this Michigan team was a one-dimensional team. And we saw Orji's limitations, inability to read coverages or pass effectively down the field. Michigan was forced into really predictable play calling, which was not sustainable. And Orji really didn't show that he could give Michigan any downfield threat. We all love the guy. We know he's a great athlete, but I think everybody saw in that Washington game when Tuttle came in, he brought some excitement. He replaced Orji. He ultimately lacked some accuracy and ball security, specifically in the Illinois game, but in the Washington game as well, the ball security became an issue near the end of the game. But still, heading into the bye week, Orji got thrown into a little bit of a tough situation at Washington. He was down 14-0. Technically, he outscored Washington after getting put in the game. I want to say 17-13 from that point out, but still ended up losing that game by 10 points. But heading into the bye week, I think everybody in the Michigan fan base and all of the Michigan faithful were thinking, okay, the pieces of the puzzle might be there if Jack Tuttle can be a serviceable quarterback, right? He looked like an actual quarterback, which was something Michigan was not seeing at all with Alex Orji. And so Tuttle, has the whole bye week to work with this offense. He comes out against Illinois, which Illinois is a good team. This Brett Bielema Illinois team is good, but let's be honest, folks, they're not that good of a team, right? Purdue scored 49 points against Illinois a week before. And what does a Tuttle-led Michigan team do coming out in the Illinois game? Well, Tuttle was missing throws. A lot of his throws were low and behind his receivers, which he wasn't really showing vision, the ability to throw guys open. He missed that one. To me, it was like a really bad miss where tight end Colston Loveland went out on a little bit of a wheel route uh, on the left side of the field. I know Tuttle had a little bit of pressure in his face, but to me, there's several. I mean, dozens, if not nearly 100 quarterbacks in the country that would have made that throw and probably gotten a touchdown to Colston Loveland in that moment. Unfortunately, Michigan does not appear to have a quarterback on the roster that can make a read like that and get a throw downfield and score a touchdown on what was seemingly a wide open play. Um, Tuttle did not look good. And of course, that just leads to more questions at the quarterback position. Michigan only scores 7 points against Illinois, which was downright embarrassing. I think the breath and the wind just got taken out of the sails of the entire Michigan program and the entire Michigan fan base. To add insult to injury, Illinois' backup quarterback came in and threw a 2-point conversion. Uh, the game prior, Indiana was beating up on Nebraska. Their backup quarterback came in and was throwing the ball downfield. And so the question remains, if all of these schools can have serviceable quarterbacks and schools like Illinois and Indiana can have serviceable backup quarterbacks, why is it that a program like Michigan is struggling so much to have anybody that can throw the ball downfield effectively on their roster? And I know it's a first-year coaching staff and they're going to work some things out, and I'm still very supportive of Sharon Moore, but you got to be held accountable for the product on the field. And you also have to be held accountable for the fact that you said that you weren't going to go hit the transfer portal and you liked what you had in the quarterback room. It's basically inexcusable at this point to say we like what we have in the quarterback room and then to put out Davis Warren in the performance that he had, Alex Orji in the performance that he had, and then Jack Tuttle in the performance that he had, and everybody's scratching their head and saying, maybe throw in Jaden Davis, but if Jaden Davis, uh, there's rumors that perhaps Jaden Davis, true freshman, highly recruited guy, there's rumors that maybe he or his family don't want him to play in year one. Maybe they want to protect the red shirt, develop him, not get thrown into a dicey situation, which I guess that's fair, but at this point, I'm not sure if we have any better options. So there's that. There's maybe a 2 quarterback system, but I think we all realized in that Illinois game that what we have this year at quarterback just isn't going to cut it. And now the Michigan Wolverines are sitting at 4-3 after 7 games, after last year's undefeated national championship season. Um, it's depressing. It's a little bit of a head scratcher. We're wondering where this quarterback dilemma came from. Now, what do we see? Do we go back to Davis Warren? Is it Jack Tuttle's team for the rest of the year? Is it a 2 quarterback system with Orji and then maybe Tuttle or Warren being the throwing quarterback? None of those seem very exciting. It almost seems like, I know Jaden Davis gets 4 games before he can burn the red shirt. It almost seems like giving him the keys to the kingdom, maybe with 4 games remaining. That way we can just see what he has and start to develop him for next year. The good news is Michigan has really good recruits coming at the quarterback position in the future, but Sharon Moore has to survive long enough to see those quarterbacks play. And we're looking at maybe a 6-6 ceiling for this team. If they continue to play the way on offense that they've been playing, then we're looking at potentially a 6-6 ceiling, because Northwestern's a winnable game. Michigan State is a winnable game. I don't really think you can say Oregon, Ohio State, or Indiana are winnable games with what we're seeing at the quarterback position right now. Um, just to revisit the transfer portal talk a little bit, Barstool Sports head man Dave Portnoy has been very public about the fact that he's willing to invest up to $3 million to get Michigan a quarterback. I'm not sure how the boosters feel about Dave Portnoy at Michigan. I think there's rumors that they are maybe not too fond of him representing the school. But in today's NIL age, the transfer portal age, a lot of money changing hands behind the scenes. Sharon Moore reportedly took a meeting with Dave Portnoy. I don't know if that's validated or not, but Portnoy seemed to make it sound like it was true. The question then becomes, uh, can Portnoy maybe get a transfer quarterback to bridge the gap until these younger quarterbacks are developed at Michigan? Who knows? It would be a crazy storyline at this point when you have a guy like Dave Portnoy making a comment like that. Typically, when he says something like that, he backs it up. He's one of those unique characters that kind of goes balls to the wall, all in on these types of situations. So it'll be interesting to see if he actually plays a role in getting a quarterback or maybe some other five-star talented individuals to Michigan. Uh, Sam Webb, who is a reputable reporter for Michigan Insider, that's, of course, the Michigan chapter of 24/7 Sports. He has been reportedly saying this week that Michigan is expected to go on a legendary recruiting tear in the football uh, department, and that perhaps it will make up for all of the L's we've taken in recent years, including Najee Harris and the likes. And Sam Webb has repeatedly been saying that to expect a major recruiting run by Michigan soon. I'm talking about like this week or this month. And so with the way that Michigan football is looking on the field, that would be just about the only thing to create some excitement around this team, is to see a lot of talented players coming. Um, Offensive linemen and tight ends and those types of players are not going to stir up the excitement. We know Michigan can recruit and develop offensive linemen. We know that they can get some of the top tight ends, but what Sam Webb was hinting at is that perhaps some five-star like skill position players will finally make their way to Michigan, because what we're seeing is the culture and identity of the Ben Herbert and Jim Harbaugh teams was they would take a lot of three-star guys or lower four-star guys, get the 15th, 16th, 17th ranked recruiting class in the country, and then develop them up and get them, squeeze all the lemonade out of the lemons that they could, and these players would become top 5 caliber teams. I don't think it's realistic to expect Sharon Moore to do that. There's not very many coaches, really any other than Jim Harbaugh, that can pull something like that off. So if Sharon Moore wants to compete at the highest level, I think Sharon Moore's identity is probably going to have to become go out and get the best guys that are in high school and then develop them and turn them into the best product on the field. So that's the talent and quarterback and players side of this thing. But I want to turn the page here and talk a little bit about coaching. The old definition of insanity is trying the same thing over and over again and expecting different results. I think we're at the point in the season where if Michigan finishes out this year looking similar to how they have in the first 7 games, then I think that we have to see a coaching change. I'm not talking about head coach. Like I said, I still support Sharon Moore. I think it's a little preemptive and uh, impatient and unfair to say fire Sharon Moore after 7 games when Michigan sent all those coaches to the NFL, all those players to the NFL, won a national championship. And don't forget, Sharon Moore has proven himself. I mean, he's called some of the best offensive drives that we've seen any coordinator in Michigan history call. Of course, I'm alluding to the last couple of years when he's dominated as the offensive play caller. Specifically, that late game drive against Alabama in the Rose Bowl was still, in my opinion, the best called offensive series that I've seen in my lifetime. So Sharon Moore has earned the opportunity to take 2 or 3 years to build a team here. but the fan base and the boosters and the faithful are going to get pretty impatient if we're looking at a 6-6 team here. So something has to change. And so let's look at the coaching staff. Let's look at what might change. First year offensive coordinator Kurt Campbell. His performance is a little difficult to evaluate due to the lack of solid quarterback play. He's shown some creative play calling. He's basically, it's like he's fighting with one hand tied behind his back right now, right? When you don't have a serviceable quarterback, it's hard to evaluate an offensive coordinator. I think that Campbell probably comes back next year. I don't think we see a change there necessarily. He's a pretty bright guy. From what I'm hearing, he's a pretty creative and smart guy and play caller. We just haven't really seen it from him this year. He may have a little bit more time. Uh, Same with Grant Newsome on the offensive line. Grant Newsome's a Michigan guy. He went from tight ends coach to offensive line coach. Um, the offensive line appears to be improving, and I'm assuming that Grant Newsome is going to continue to improve that position group the remainder of this year, especially with Greg Crippen starting at center now and Gentry starting at right tackle. I think we're going to see that offensive line play better. And honestly, it wasn't that bad of an offensive line game against Illinois. There was some pass protection late in the game that broke down, but the O-line looked decent. And so I don't think Kurt Campbell or Grant Newsome are going anywhere. Maybe Campbell if a premier offensive play caller becomes available. There's a former Michigan quarterback, Nick Sheridan, that's floating around at Alabama right now. There's some other guys out there that maybe if you get a guy that makes sense, but I'm definitely not calling for anybody's head. I'm just evaluating what we're seeing on the field. If there is a position group that is underachieving to an unacceptable status, I think you have to say it's the secondary. Michigan's defensive line is loaded with NFL talent, and they've played pretty good. Michigan's linebackers, notably Ernest Hausman and Jay Barham, they they've been consistent this year. Not as good as we thought they would be, but they continue to get better and look good. But man, this secondary, the fact that they've got Will Johnson in the secondary, who is probably the best cornerback in the country. You've got senior captain Makari Page floating at safety, and then a lot of really young talent that is good. I know the Rod Moore injury hurts. Quentin Johnson is pretty experienced back there, but Zeke Berry and Jair Hill are really talented guys that are on the come up. Uh, this Michigan secondary is currently ranked 96th in the country at defending the pass. That's unacceptable. That's given up 234.1 yards per game. Um, Absolutely unacceptable. And so you look at, okay, well, who's the secondary coach? Well, first year secondary coach Lamar Morgan, he's facing some criticism right now, but do you replace a guy like that? I mean, is Morgan where you go to make a change? I'm not so sure about that. This offseason, he uh, secured, or it seems to have secured, the best safety duo maybe that I've seen in a single recruiting class, with Ivan Taylor and Kainoa Winston both committing to Michigan, and Lamar Morgan's fingerprints were all over both of those commitments. So it might be a little bit dicey trying to make a change at that position. But then you look at the defense as a whole. It's pretty hard to not say that Wink Martindale is the most obvious coach to look at when considering if Michigan makes a change from this year to next year. Now, granted, there's still 5 games to play. If Wink Martindale's defense starts to look good as a unit and look better as a unit, I mean, they only gave up 21 points against Illinois. That should be good enough to win. So that's on the offense. But we have to see some improvement. I thought it was unfair when people were comparing Wink Martindale to Don Brown. I was like, they're just doing that because he's old. He's a, you know, got that grumpy old man kind of look. And I'm not throwing shade at Wink Martindale. You're not that old, brother. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying he's an older guy. We had Jesse Minter, we had Mike McDonald. It appeared as though people were just taking the easy comparison, saying, "Oh, this guy might be the next Don Brown." Um, Wink Martindale is thought of as the godfather of that Ravens offense that Mike McDonald and Jesse Minter had. Um, However, it does appear that there are some similarities to Don Brown now, and I think that that's fair. And here's what I mean by that: it's a different scheme, it's not the same thing, but in the biggest games at the biggest moments, they're giving up the biggest plays and not uh, helping Michigan's offense out. Is the quarterback issue the biggest issue? Absolutely. I don't think anybody would argue with that. But Michigan's defense is not getting other teams off the field when they should. Not like the Jesse Minter and Mike McDonald defenses that we saw. And the secondary seems to be mostly to blame for that. So I think if we see a change anywhere, it might be Wink Martindale with the target on his back. Again, I'm not calling for that necessarily. I don't pretend to know more than the coaches that are in practice with these guys every single day, but I got to just evaluate what I see on the field, and that's what I'm doing here. Special teams has been inconsistent, but I don't think you necessarily have to make any special teams changes at this point. It's really just difficult to look at the road ahead for Michigan with one of the toughest remaining schedules remaining. Michigan has to find a solution at quarterback, has to figure out a defensive identity in order to salvage the season. And at this point, it's kind of laughable to even say the words salvage the season. I mean, a Michigan team that's playing this way couldn't possibly run the table with against a schedule like this. And so we're looking at a 4 or 5, maybe 6 or 7 loss team. I mean, and I think if it does get into that 6 or 7 loss territory, that's when Sharon Moore is going to have to look at making drastic changes at the quarter, at not just looking at like Portnoy in the quarterback situation, but also I think a coordinator will have to be replaced, and that will probably be Wink Martindale, is my guess, even though he has a lot of NFL experience and is clearly a guy that knows what he's doing. It's just not working for this team right now. The good news is Michigan basketball, I guess. I mean, Dusty May and Michigan basketball tip off here in about 5 minutes. So I'm going to wrap up this recording and go check out the basketball team. Hopefully, Dusty May gives us something to have hope for. I will be back next week. I will never give up on Michigan football and will always be here to root for the team, root for the coaches, root for the players, and analyze honestly what I'm seeing on the field. Thank you guys for listening. I am Michael Smeltzer. That was the Blue Wall. And as always, go blue.